My name is Rebecca Manzella. I am the manager with Resurrection Funeral Home here in Clinton Township. Along with Call Funeral Home, we've brought you together today, the first meeting today for Dying to Know. So our new series here at the Senior Center, we're going to meet 4 times this year to discuss 4 different topics. Today we're talking about your final celebration and what that looks like. I'm going to introduce Mindy and Anna from Choice Hospice. They're going to lead us today.
All right, if I'm yelling at you guys, let me know. I have 7 kids and I project my voice. So, okay, let me know otherwise. How are you today? I'm going to harass you guys. Are you good with that today? I heard you guys were harassable, so please harass back. Okay, the first thing I'm going to ask you guys is how many of you have tried to talk to your kids, loved ones, whoever you need to about end of life or arrangements? How many were successful? Okay, that's good. So you guys cornered them real good then, right? Because most kids are like, oh, Mom, it's not that time yet. You're not that old. Or come on, we can talk about that another time. Have any of you got the runaround? Ooh, this is a tough group. You guys just cornered them, didn't you? We need to know your tactics because not as many people are successful. So that's perfect. So we're going to talk about some of that stuff today. We're going to talk about some of the things to consider through end of life today when we go through all of this. And please bear with me because this is my first time presenting here. So if I get stuck on something, please bear with me. Okay, 92% of people say it's important to talk about it. 95% say that they would be willing to talk about it, and statistically only 53% say they would, or 53% say they'd be relieved to talk about it, and only 32% actually talk about it. So you guys are truly exceptional people here, because you guys have been very successful at getting that done. How many people have end-of-life arrangements like your funeral home set up, or you know where you want to be buried or how you want your end-of-life celebration to be had? Okay. So the worst thing that can happen is when we get to end of life and we didn't talk about it, and now our loved one has died and we haven't even started the conversation. So some of what we're going to talk about today is why, even though it's a hard topic to talk about, why it's so important to talk about before it happens, because nobody wants that added stress of those kind of thoughts and decisions in the moment of a crisis. So we're going to go over some of that. A time for living. Dost thou love life? Then do not squander time, for that's the stuff life is made of. Okay, in the event of a serious illness or injury, it's just life's natural aging brings increased awareness of time. So so many times we are missing what's important. We're not living in the moment and we're rushing. So it's okay to take a step back. It's okay to sit back and say, let's talk about some things. Let's slow down for a minute. We're all so busy that, we're brushing our teeth and our hair somehow at the same time, and we're reading the paper and trying to eat and accomplish a million things. And it's easy to forget things that are end-of-life planning or things. Am I wrong? Okay, you guys are exceptional, so I don't know if you guys do that differently, but I make it look very ungraceful in multitasking. Okay, we're talking about integrity and talking about no time for deceptions. How many people go to the doctor or are trying to talk about things or trying to get clear answers, and you kind of get a lot of fluff instead, and you're like, well, I don't know what you even got to because I still don't have answers. Anyone? Anyone get fluff from your healthcare providers? Anyone get indirect answers about things when you're trying to? Thank you. Thank you for that. So we know that it's not always right? Sometimes doctors don't even like to be direct about terminal illnesses because they don't want to hurt feelings. Sometimes it's, in every realm of life, sometimes we're a little graceful and we aren't direct with things. And especially when we're talking about end of life and we're talking about trying to be prepared for end of life, that is the least area that we want to play around with. We just want direct and clear cut and know what's what. So we will talk about some of the options. How about advanced directives? How many have an advanced directive established? When it comes to end-of-life decisions, if you're in the hospital and a tragic accident happens and you're on a ventilator and you don't have the paper established that says what your wishes are or who's making those wishes for you, and you don't have a spouse available, maybe they're deceased, you're widowed, divorced, or single, whatever the case may be, and you have 7 children because you're obnoxious like me, you have to get all 7 to agree, or else you stay on the vent, you get full treatment because they will not withdraw any type of treatment. They will not do a DNR order. They will not let you sign on to hospice, even to have comfort treatment, if not all 7 agree, if you don't have the right things in place. How many people knew that? Good. Okay. I feel like I'm doing something. All right. So what we have in front of you there is the 5 wishes. We're going to go through the 5 wishes, and we're going to talk about how to fill that out. This is one of many ways that you can create this form. You do not have to have an attorney to create these forms. You do not have to pay a bunch of money for different services to create these forms. The only thing in the state of Michigan for your legalities to be able to have your wishes honored and to designate a patient advocate is you have to have a form filled out such as this, an example, and there's lots of variations. You have to have 2 witnesses on the form that are unrelated, that are witnessing your signature and that you are the one that is making this designation. They have to be unrelated and they cannot be healthcare providers, are the rules on that. There is an area where it can be notarized on the 5 wishes, and we'll talk about that. How many are snowbirds or like to get away from the snow or stay in other states at times? Anyone? You guys are hardcore in here. You guys, the snow doesn't bother you. I get it. Okay. So I see that. Like, I am very impressed with this group. I'm a little intimidated, I can't lie. So that's perfect, though. So in the other states, though, if we're going to Florida or something and we want our document to be valid anywhere we go, you do need it notarized. In the state of Michigan, you do not need it notarized. In the state of Florida, you have to have it notarized or it's invalid. So every state is different on their regulations. So getting it notarized is the best way for it to be accepted on a more generalized kind of playing field. So we'll talk a little bit about the 5 wishes. DNR orders. Do you guys know the difference between a do not resuscitate order and a full code or a code status? Okay. How many people, if something happened, if we were, God forbid, in a car accident today, how many people would want to be on a life support device with a ventilator that keeps you alive mechanically? None of you. You guys are tough, all of you. Okay, so in that case, when you're thinking about it from that perspective, if you don't have a DNR order in place and you don't have someone that readily available is able to present your advocate, your designated advocate paperwork, then what happens is you will have CPR performed on you. CPR almost always leads to a ventilation or a ventilator or mechanical assistance. So now the bottom line is, well, how do we stop that from happening since the entire room does not want that to happen? You would want it to happen. If you're going to be survivable or not, if you can be fixed or not. Good, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. So in those circumstances, those are things where in this 5 wishes, you can say, I don't want to be on a ventilator if I'm a vegetable that is brain dead, that is XYZ. You could write that out and make it specific so that way your wishes are there in print and people have to follow what's in the document. If you don't have that established, then and you're a full code, which is essentially that we don't have, everyone's automatically a full code. No matter if you have paperwork or not, if it does not say do not resuscitate, you are a default full code. So in your case, there's nothing that you have to do in the code status realm of things, but you do want to make sure your wishes are made known to everybody. Or else you can have an all or nothing approach. Or if it's your kids that are discussing it, some kids are like, no, mom would want this. No, I know mom better. Mom wants this. No, I know mom better. Mom wants this. Relatable? Yes. Okay. But as far as the paperwork goes, there's a difference between an advance directive, a living will, and there's so many other variables in between. So the title of the document is very important. So when you have a living will, that is something where they are following it in life. It is not something where they're forcing decisions or making decisions for you. A patient advocate is someone who is that's a durable power of attorney. That's the important part, is the word durable, is someone who can make those decisions while you are incapacitated and advocate for you, but that also ends at end of life. So when it comes to estate, when it comes to property stuff, it doesn't matter who you said was going to be your advocate. When it comes to anything that has to do with estate and those kind of things, it would have to end up being in the court system if you don't have those documents in hand. So those, you want to look more at will planning and things of that nature. So that's important because some people do not realize that at end of life, durable power of attorney is null and void. So that's important if you didn't do pre-planning with funeral services and things of that nature, because if you go into the funeral service and you're saying, well, I am the durable power of attorney, they can't accept that. It's because that ends at end of life. It's only while the person is alive. So it is the best practice to have that pre-signed and ahead of time. It does not have to be, though. There are people that we can literally call our friends and say, oh my goodness, we just had a hospice death. They unfortunately they didn't know that they were ready to make those kind of choices, but we need them to talk to you now, and they decided they wanted to use your funeral service. As long as they have the legal right to be the decision maker, then they literally can have in the moment planning, but it's not ideal. And you have to make sure that it's not the durable power of attorney, because now if someone is deceased, that paperwork is null and void. Can you elaborate at all regarding like the legal, what are the best legal paperwork to have established when it comes to funeral planning if they didn't pre-arrange?
So when prearrangements are not set up ahead of time, let me backtrack. If prearrangements are set up ahead of time, that's wonderful, but it still doesn't get around having a next of kin. If you do not have a next of kin, not one in the area, not one that you still talk to, because we find that happens a lot as well too, you can do what is called a funeral representative. So this is a specific form for the state that allows you to choose who you want to be your funeral representative. This person has total control over all of your funeral services. So they are the one following your wishes. You also designate a second person on that list, so that way if the first person is not able to do so, the second person can for you.
That's perfect. Thank you. That is something I did not know, that you literally can specify specifically for funeral. So that's a great idea. If you don't have and you aren't wanting to do pre-arrangements, then at the very least, that sounds like that would be very beneficial. So that way it makes things smooth sailing at the end of life, and you don't have to go through all the hoops of establishing who the next of kin is or trying to find them. Any questions so far in that regard? So we kind of talked about that natural death versus a DNR. In the hospital setting, I do want to kind of add one extra layer. There is a code status that you'll hear say called chemical code, or that you want medications or drugs to stay alive, but you do not want mechanical things to stay alive. That is only applicable in the hospital setting, though. So if you are in the hospital, or even in your paperwork, you can even say, I would be open to being a chem code in the hospital, which you can just say like chemical code or CHEM code, and that is saying that you would be agreeable to having IV medications or other medications to restart your heart, to try to bring your blood pressures up, to save you in the respect without doing all of the aggressive interventions that are more physical, like a ventilator or PEG tubes, feeding tubes, things of that nature. But just remember, that's only in the hospital setting. Making sure that we know what our choices are. That's one reason why Choice Hospice got its name. We originated with a physician who was discharging patients onto hospice service. He worked at a hospital. He also has an internal med practice, and things just didn't seem to go right. How many people have heard that hospice, or feel that hospice may hasten end of life? Okay, thank you for that. It's okay to pick on me too and call me out on things. I know that I'm with a hospice, but I know the stigmas. So there are stigmas with hospice care, right? People are concerned because they're like, no, it will hasten end of life. It won't. Some providers, unfortunately, the facts kind of line up in the wrong direction, and it does end up adding up to hastening end of life. That's why Choice Hospice was created. Choice Hospice was created to advocate for patients, to let them know what their choices are regarding hospice care, and that there are lots of different hospice approaches in ways that sometimes we might think there should only be one, but there are variations. So with Choice Hospice, we actually come out with a kind of a weird counterintuitive saying that we are life-promoting hospice, and that's confusing to people, but it's purposeful because how many people hear things that are kind of scary and like, oh, that might make me die faster, and it gets people afraid of the resources that could be available to them to support them through these kind of illnesses and terminal illnesses. Consumers in general only know what they're told, right? You don't know all of the regulations. So I'll just give this, I'm not going to go into a whole spiel about it, but I want to give one snippet of information, is that you can get treatment and interventions for all diseases that are unrelated to what we call your terminal diagnosis. So for comfort measures, and we're not doing aggressive interventions, say for heart failure, but if someone has kidney failure and it is not related to the heart failure, they do have the choice and the right to be able to still choose dialysis. Some places you'll hear that you can't be on dialysis and be on hospice, and it very much depends on the diagnosis specifically, not an one-size-fits-all approach. Oh, there are some very valid points, though, when we're talking about fear. How many of you are afraid to, I'm so sorry, but you gave me such an opportunity here, afraid to confront your daughter-in-laws? I'm an opportunist. I'm sorry. Thank you for that. Thank you for playing nicely. So in these kind of cases, sometimes it's not fear that drives us, but it's the fear of upsetting somebody that may drive us. Or because we're trying to be super, now I know you guys are all exceptionally considerate and empathetic people as well. So, you know, that drives some fear. You don't want to upset people. In some cases, though, people do feel like they're losing control. And when you talk about and address these things, as scary as they may seem at first, it is empowering to be able to conquer these. Hopefully, that's kind of how this program got established, is that it sounded like people wanted this kind of information. They wanted to be able to hear and have access to this kind of information. So talking about it is empowering. It also is hard to start talking about these kind of things in the moment of the illness. We kind of elaborated a little bit on that earlier. But you don't want to have that conversation when you're in the illness yourself, trying to experience some health or recovery or whatever your goal is at that time is not the time you want to have that conversation. And it can be awkward. Some people, you might see your children shy away if you are dealing with the illness. And it may be that they're uncomfortable seeing what's happening to their loved one, right? Things of that nature. So that's important to remember too, that it might be even scarier for them to talk about than it is for us to talk about, which seems to be the case. And that's kind of important to remember too. We don't want to talk about it in the moment. And this again emphasizes don't make assumptions. So when you are doing the things like you're talking about, specifically saying, well, I do want this treatment, I just don't want that treatment. Be as specific as possible. You can even add attached pages and say on here, see page XYZ, and you can label your extra document and make it a part of this. There are other documents online also through the state of Michigan that are state of Michigan approved, and what they recommend as far as their advanced directives or durable power of attorneys. Essentially, they're all set up the same way. They have a different cover and a little different fluff, but they're all set up the same way. But whatever you're doing, whichever form you choose, be very specific. And when I say you cannot be specific enough, things can be so easily misinterpreted, misread, misconstrued, and so you're just trying to iron out that from ever being a possibility. We don't got to talk about this either because they've cornered everybody. So this is just talking about how to bring up the subject. If you're like me and you have some of your kids are like super soft-hearted and emotional and you know they'll fall apart real easy, you might try to be more casual with it and bring up different things to kind of get to the topic, maybe not as direct, things of that nature. Has anyone had a hard time having those conversations or trying to? I knew it. Listen, I'm just trying to do my job, guys. Funeral arrangements, we've talked about that. And the nice thing about this is if you prearrange it, you know it's exactly how you want that to look, right? You don't have to worry about if you have a specific vision in your mind on how you want your end of life celebration to be, and you're wanting it to be more like a party, you don't want it to be this or that, it's good to plan it yourself. You don't got to count on someone else trying to execute your vision, right? Time is the enemy. We're here and now, and God forbid, but any of us could walk out that door, no matter our age, and could be in a very different predicament very quickly. That tends to be how life works. It's sneaky like that. So when you are here and now, it's best to get things done and not wait for tomorrow, because tomorrow is not guaranteed, as we all know. Thank you guys so much for dealing with me in this presentation. All right, thank you so much, and we will come and talk and be around if you need anything at all. Thank you for your time.